Hi, this is Nisha and Warren with another episode of our new series, Seeing Beyond. For this episode, we have Rohas Nagpal, who is currently the chief blockchain architect at Future Money Wallet. So, Rohas has a huge history, and I'll probably try and condense them into little highlights for you guys. And then Rohas, I'd like you to also talk a little bit about your own journey and everything that you've sort of worked in the blockchain space. So, out of his work that has spanned for many years and across 18 countries, he's assisted the government of India in framing the draft rules and regulations under the Information Technology Act. He's also started many ventures, out of which some of the highlights include he started the Asian School of Cyber Laws out of Pune, and currently also runs a community of 37 banks, which explores around solutions that could probably be built on the entire blockchain itself. And so this community, it's called BankChain. So Rohas, why don't you tell us a little more about everything that you've done in this space, so that the audience can also sort of familiarize with you as well.
Sure. So I started my journey in cybersecurity and cyber investigation in the mid 90s. And I first heard the term Bitcoin about 2010 or 11 when I was helping one of the law enforcement agencies to investigate a case where the drug mafia was using Bitcoin for payments. So in fact, we that time realized how drugs were actually being sold. So you would go to this cafe and there would be a youngster sitting there. You give him cash and he would convert it to something called Bitcoin, which we had never heard at that time. And he would give you a number like 84. You go home and a few days later a book arrives through a courier service. Could be a Harry Potter book, for example. And then you tear a page out. Cut that page 84 only, because that's the number he gave you. And then you cut that into small pieces. And when you put a piece on your tongue, the drug would take effect. So these were these very new chemical, synthetic kind of drugs that came in. And that's how we heard of the term Bitcoin. And then I got researching into the Bitcoin technology, the white paper, tried a little bit of mining, and I was completely blown. So I realized that this is absolutely world changing technology. And then in 2015, I moved completely into the blockchain space. So for the first few years, I did a lot of work for various banks where we built various blockchain solutions. And now I have moved into my own project, which is called as the Future Money Wallet and the Hi-Fi blockchain. So it's like a mix of two projects. And what we're trying to do is wrap the world's assets and make them available on various blockchains. So things right from intellectual property like patents and trademarks to cash, to real estate, to paintings, anything and everything which can be tokenized and put on blockchain. So that's what I'm currently doing.
Does that include NFTs as well?
Sure. NFT is actually just another term. So when we say NFT, we say non-fungible token. So I would say that when you wrap things like intellectual property, then you are creating NFT. So NFT is just another buzzword. But at the base, it's all the same thing. Wrapped assets or tokenized assets.
Amazing. I'm actually very excited, Rohas, to be speaking to you. I've been following your series on Mint. I even read the one that came out yesterday,
That's right.
and I think it's really brilliant. Before we get into what we're talking about, which is mainstream crypto and crypto as CTC, or part of the pay package, if you can just, for our audience, right, explain a little bit about crypto itself, because um, at the circles I am currently, I'm seeing a lot of people not trusting crypto enough. So if we can get that out of the way before we speak about it as as mainstream currency, I guess it'll be, through this we also will be helping create some awareness. I'm hoping.
Sure thing. So actually the problem starts because people don't know what crypto really means. So for most people, when you hear the word crypto, you're either going to think Bitcoin, or maybe some people nowadays talk about things like Dogecoin and Shiba and all that. But sorry, actually there's a lot more to crypto. So we can divide crypto. So there are about 20,000 plus cryptos in the world, and we can kind of divide them into categories. So just like when you look at the stock market and you can divide thousands of companies into categories based on what they do. So you could say this is an FMCG company or this is a bank. Ultimately they are companies, but they do different things. Similarly, you can divide cryptos based on functions. So some cryptos behave like currencies, and you are supposed to use them to pay money and as normal medium of exchange. And by the way, Bitcoin is not that anymore. It started out to be that, but today Bitcoin is not really a medium of exchange because of its massive price volatility. So I would say today, when you look at things like Litecoin or Monero, these are what we call as the medium of exchange or cryptocurrencies. where actually the word currencies applies. Then we have certain cryptos which are store of value, which I would say something like a Bitcoin. Then there are cryptos which actually give you dividends. So there are certain crypto exchanges, and every day, whatever trading fee they earn, they give a large part of that back to their token holders as dividend. So we call those dividend paying ones. Then you have something like ETH or Ether, which is quite popular nowadays. That is very similar to fuel. So just like in our modern economy, we need petrol to drive our cars, trucks, trains, aeroplanes, everything needs oil, right? Similarly, Ethereum is a platform where thousands of people run decentralized finance businesses. And there the fuel is ETH. So it is needed to run that technology. Then there are projects like you have Theta, which is a video streaming project. There you need something like Theta to actually power the storage of and streaming of videos. So the first thing I'd like people to understand is cryptos are of many different types. So you need to understand what a particular type of crypto is before you actually get deeper into it. I hope that was clear.
Yes, somewhat. I think, in a quick synopsis, I guess this was pretty clear. Though I'm sure that, there could be many, many questions around this, and this could be a series in itself, right? Like your Mint series. I think it has so many facets, and you can go on discussing. But for our sake today, I think let's talk about it becoming mainstream and, just future gaze as much as we want to.
Sure.
So, Varun, do you want to go?
Right, yeah. So on the same thing that Nisha was just talking about, future gazing things, and crypto essentially creeping into the mainstream, into a mainstream transactions for that matter. One of the biggest things which sort of we've been hearing a lot about speculatively is the fact that crypto could become a part of our average CTCs. The way that companies sort of start compensating us for our work. What are your thoughts on this? Do you think this would become mainstream?
Sure.
How viable is it both on the employee side and on the company side as well?
Excellent question. So actually, it depends on which sector you're talking about. So if you were in the drug mafia, you would have, crypto has been mainstream there since 2011, and most of their payments initially used to
Is
happen
done
in
on crypto.
Bitcoin, and today it happens in something called Monero, and there are a few other what we call as privacy coins, right? Then when you move to the more legitimate industries, so I would say in the IT sector, especially in the gig economy, cryptos are already mainstream. So for example, even people like me, when we give consulting services to a company, fine, you take money through the regular channel banking. But when you're dealing with smaller individuals, smaller entities, startups, the bank system is not very practical. See, it takes quite a few days for the money to come, and there are lots of commissions that are charged. So there people usually use things like Litecoin, which are not so volatile, and the money can come across instantly. Or in fact, there's a concept called stable coin, which has picked up very, very well. So you would use something like a USDC, which is a US dollar backed stable coin. So the value is exactly pegged to the dollar, so it's almost always equal to $1, and it comes across to you from anywhere in the world in seconds, and there's hardly any transaction fee. So I see that it's already gone mainstream for the gig economy. Moving on to larger companies, so there the problems only are of the balance sheet and the accounting purposes. So now we've already heard companies like Tesla talk about it. So the moment a company decides to put crypto on its balance sheet, now it's easy for them to start paying in that. See, because you must remember, it's more an accounting problem rather than anything else. Because if at every time when you're making declarations, you have to keep translating the price into local currency, it adds a level of friction. But if you as a company announce that I'm now going to hold Bitcoin on my balance sheet, or I'm going to hold crypto on my balance sheet, then you can start paying. There is absolutely no problem. So I see
But
this happening where Visa now enables a huge number of merchants to accept crypto. So what Visa is doing is it's instantly converting that crypto into fiat. So you are accepting crypto on your site, but instantly it gets converted to fiat and stored. So that's one approach. Second approach would be you would accept crypto and store it as crypto. And I think that's happening pretty fast now. You have Shopify, which is allowing it for e-commerce merchants. Lots of other such payment gateways have started coming in. And I think it's already getting mainstream because it does have a few inherent advantages to offer.
awesome. I think let's go a little deeper, Rohas. Like you mentioned that companies would have balance sheet issues and they have to store these, coins or the currency, or whatever they want to kind of deal with, right? So there's two parts that I have to ask you here. What would be the legal, regulatory, and tax implications for companies to do that? That would be one. And second, my question really was that, what is stopping them today, right, from doing this? Because you mentioned that for a freelancer, a gig worker, it's that much easier, but for an industry to adopt it, what is stopping them?
Sure. So I would say the number one thing stopping them are the myths or the misconceptions around it, where they keep saying it's illegal. Well, actually, it's not. So if you look at the Indian scenario, all that the government keeps clarifying is that you cannot use crypto as a currency, right? You can use it as an asset. Do you remember something called Sodexo passes, which were quite popular at one time? Well,
Yeah.
actually, Sodexo actually became a currency later, where you could walk into a clothes shop and buy clothes using Sodexo. And at that time, there was a regulatory clampdown on it. Because naturally, when you start to use things other than the rupee for your daily transactions, that is where the problems begin. So as long as you are not using crypto for that, the government never has a problem. So like a Sodexo being used only for food passes was great. Similarly, you could consider loyalty points. So today, you have loyalty points available to you when you travel, when you go to hotels and all that. And then are you able to convert those loyalty points into other things? Yes. So you could get loyalty points from flights and then convert it to buy electronics from a particular platform. Right. So when we look at that scenario, can't we say that the loyalty points are kind of behaving like currencies? Because you are able to earn it in one place and spend it in another? Well, most cryptos are similar to that concept. But when you start to pay salaries in them, you are now saying, I am using crypto as a currency. And that is going to cause you legal problems in India, which is the reason we are not seeing that happening yet. And why the government is so worried about the tax element is when you talk about normal cash or currencies, it goes through the banking system and the banks are highly regulated. So all the transactions go through anti money laundering checks and KYC and everything. But in crypto, there is no regulator. There are no regulated entities per se. So, how will the government ever come to know how much money you paid or received? And that's the reason I don't think crypto will be used to pay salaries in India for quite some time till we have regulations in place. I hope that answers your question.
It does, it does. But I was also thinking of, this thing, right? Like the way you mentioned Sodexo versus, I know that there's also payback coins and things like that, which, you can, or every retail entity used to at some point have their own coins when you could go and actually redeem them, etc. So I'm thinking that there's a possibility here that companies or people who are willing to experiment, at least, can be paid one part of their CTC, because that's how Sodexo was, right? It was not your CTC, but it was a benefit that was given on top of the CTC. So do you think that at least people can start with that if they want to experiment?
Definitely they can. So, in fact, if you realize, like even a lot of bookstores, they give you prepaid cards or prepaid those instruments. I think even Amazon does the same thing. The important point is, do they allow you to redeem that for cash? Or do they only say you have to spend on our platform? So the moment you say it is only to spend on the platform, there is absolutely no problem. Consider that like a private prepaid instrument kind of thing, but you don't get cash back. You get products only. So if I gift you a, just give me one sec. Sorry, there was some noise in the background. So if the government, if an Amazon prepaid instrument is given to you and you are only allowed to now spend it on the Amazon platform, it's perfectly fine. But the moment Amazon says, I will reimburse the cash to you, now it becomes like a currency, and that's where problems begin to happen. So now the issue is that suppose as a company, I'm paying this to you as salary. When I give you this crypto, what are you going to do with it? Actually, you are going to convert it to cash, right? Because there is no product behind it. There is no store in the world which says, I am running Litecoin or Bitcoin or Ethereum and I will give you products in return. And that's where the problems begin. So that's why I don't see it happening. However, having said that, my latest project, it's based out of Wyoming, which is a small state in the US. And they are the first in the world who has come out with this concept called an open blockchain token, where very specifically the definition is it is to be used for consumptive purposes only. You cannot redeem it for cash, and that can be now used as something like a Sodexo. And yes, companies can then start paying salary in part of open blockchain token, because there has to be a very clear person behind it who says, in return for this, what will I sell to you, and I will never reimburse this for cash. That's the basic distinction. I hope you understand what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, no, definitely, right? And I think that's an interesting perspective. I didn't even realize that before we had this discussion. So my question next is that you mentioned that, freelancers and gig workers are already accepting crypto and things like that. So I'm curious, are they not being taxed, or, they don't come under any radar, is it? Like,
Yes, so that's an excellent question. So now, if you're a small time guy, right, you can stay under the radar for quite some time, because if you are working in the tech fields, you realize that many people accept crypto. So I'll give you a very simple example. Not my case, but some people I know. So they run these mini clouds kind of server services. So a lot of clients need handholding to use cloud services. So what these guys do is either they set up their own servers in other countries, and then they give clients these services. The client pays them in crypto, and they in turn pay for the services in crypto. So because they have people on both sides of the coin, people paying them in crypto and people accepting crypto, they are able to do most of these transactions without paying any tax anywhere. Because see, in countries there is a lot of complex taxation. It is not only income tax which is a problem, but you also have things like a GST. So because of all these taxes, and then come on, GST is 18%, income tax is like 30 plus percent. A lot of these guys don't want to pay those taxes. So yes, you can end up completely bypassing this. And if you are in an industry where people are ready to accept your crypto, then awesome, you don't end up paying any taxes, and that's the big problem.
it somehow seems, I mean, the way you're explaining it, and I mean, I believe that we are people who love to be, I mean, we like to be on the right side of the future. But it, when you're talking about it, and if I was a regulatory person, I would be like, okay, this sounds a little, what's the right word to use? This sounds like a
Shady?
situation.
This definitely sounds shady. Like, this is
It is.
sketchy.
It is. It is not just a little shady. It is completely
You're
shady,
like, I
depending on
don't
what you
even
do with
know
it,
what
right?
you guys are doing.
Yeah, they won't. That's the big problem. So if suppose you are a legit person and you say, okay, I will only deal through Indian crypto exchanges. Now, Indian crypto exchanges initially they said pay us only through your bank account. So they actually did a KYC. And that KYC is pretty good. They check your Aadhaar number, PAN number. They link to your bank account, and then they will only allow you to pay through the bank account, and they will pay you back only in that bank account. So actually, they were trying to do things perfectly. But what was the response? The bank started shutting down their services, and now they are forced to move on to other mechanisms to onboard you, which is actually counterproductive. It reminds me of at the time of the British, that whole cobra paradox which started, where the government said every time you give us a dead cobra we give you money. People started growing cobras and giving it to the Brits. The Brits realized, they said, okay, you know what, scheme cancelled. What did people do? Took all the cobras and left them into the wilderness, and suddenly the cobra population went higher and higher. So we are now seeing a similar paradox in India. First, the crypto exchange says, I will only deal through banks. So everything is legit. Then the banks say, we will not give you service anymore. So now the poor fellow, what choice he has? He will now go on to other mechanisms like peer to peer. And now you're forcing him to go shady. From being completely legit, you are now forcing him to become shady. So that's what's happening, unfortunately. But when we look at countries which are taking a very different approach, so for example, I keep talking about Wyoming. Can you believe it? The government of Wyoming has sanctioned $4 million to the university there, saying, take this money and do staking of cryptocurrencies. Choose cryptos, do staking, make profits, return our money to us, and whatever is left, start funding blockchain startups. So that's like an insane level of positivity. But when you start doing that, suddenly crypto becomes very legit, because you're doing everything legitimately. So crypto in itself is not legal or illegal. It's what you do with it. Like today, when you go to the shop, can you buy a knife, a really big, sharp knife? You can, right? Now you can decide to chop vegetables with it or murder people with it. So does the knife per se become legal or illegal? No, it's what you do with it. Cash has been in existence for centuries. Do you think people don't use cash for crime? In fact, most of the crimes in the world involve cash, right? So saying that crypto leads to crime is not a very good sensible statement to make. Crypto is like cash. It can be misused or you can use it legitimately. So when a company like Tesla says, I will accept Bitcoin and give you cars, they are going to declare their profits in Bitcoin and you can tax them for it. So, I mean, I feel that we should take a more positive approach because whether we like it or not, it is going to be a very important part of our future.
Last one from me, Rohas, is you were talking about cities that have taken a positive approach. If you can just spend a minute more and talk about the learnings from there, and what can like how can we be a little more progressive about it? If we can talk about that a little bit, because I also, if I'm not wrong, Miami also has made it legal, right? And
No. So that's a
no.
good question. So actually, when we use this term legal, it's a very complex term. So on the one hand, we are seeing countries which are making Bitcoin as legal tender. Okay, that's very, very big, much more than just saying it's legal. What does legal tender mean? Like in India, when you go on the roads, what can you buy stuff in? Rupees. So we said rupee is the legal tender of India. Now, a country like El Salvador said Bitcoin is also my legal tender. What does that really mean? That you on the roads to pay for a cab, to buy anything, can now also pay using Bitcoin. So that's the highest level of legal recognition that you can give to a crypto. So now we see Paraguay is trying to do the same thing. In fact, Argentina is now planning a law which will allow people to be paid salaries in crypto. So that's something that you are talking about. That exact thing Argentina wants to start doing. So that is one level of recognition. The second level of recognition is where, like what Japan says, for example, they treat crypto as they would treat foreign exchange. And they would say whatever laws today apply to foreign exchange will apply to crypto. So you will deal through regulated banks and all the things are followed. So that's a second level of legal recognition. Third level you could say is what India has done, which is indifference. That there's no specific law for it, but there's no law against it either. So it's a thing of indifference. Okay, it exists. We are not regulating it as of right now. They're not even taxing it. No GST is applying to it. But if you profit in it, you are expected to pay income tax. That's another level of legal recognition. And then, of course, there is complete illegality where many countries say it is absolutely illegal, like what China is doing. So there are different levels to which, and in fact, India is not that bad. We've not banned it. We are just indifferent to it because you know what, it's still pretty small in our country. If you see the total overall global crypto is about a trillion and a half, out of which India would be like maybe 10% of that. So it's really very small and the government hasn't really gotten into it. I think at its peak there was more Sodexo in the country than there probably is crypto as of today. So we will see some regulation, but there's time to go.
Pretty interesting ones. So I had two follow-ups to certain things that you mentioned before, and these are macroeconomic level questions, I'd say. But then someone to clarify the fact that one, I mean, Tesla did mention that they would, you could buy their cars using cryptocurrencies, but then very shortly it had to recall it back primarily because the entire mining and of Bitcoin, all of these things was very resource intensive and directly impacted climate things. Also, one question would be that how would uh, coins sort of fairer on the climate change front and all of these things, right? And then I'll probably get to the other ones a little later.
Sure. See, with all due respect to Elon Musk, but sometimes, these evil billionaires, they're playing games. He knew the economic or the climate or the environmental impact of Bitcoin much before he declared it legal, right? And then he decides suddenly say, no, no, it's very bad. The no environmental impact changed in that 1 month. And secondly, if we talk about environmental impact, has anybody calculated how much energy is consumed by the banks, for example? Banks have buildings, buildings have air conditioning. Has anyone calculated the economic or the environmental cost of that? When you take a flight, do we calculate what is the environmental impact of every flight, every train journey, every bus journey? When people like you and me travel in cars, everywhere we cause pollution. So picking out Bitcoin and constantly talking about its environmental impact again is just hype, right? Everything that human beings do cause pollution. And not just human beings, everything that animals do also cause pollution. So, I mean, I don't really buy much into the environmental point of it because if we start thinking like that, we have to shut down 99% of the things that we do. Let's start by shutting down all aeroplanes. Let's start by shutting down all air conditioning. I mean, there's no limit, right? Let's go back to living in the caves and reduce our carbon footprint. So, no, I don't buy into that part of it. I think that's just another story to create some hype and just keep
Pretty sure, yeah.
writing about it.
So the other part, and the last person that I had in mind was when you mentioned that Sodexo was essentially used as store credits, and then it evolved to being sort of like this informal transaction. I've actually seen that in my own childhood as well, where I mean, you could legitimately buy clothes. I think it was at one of the big bazaar outlets or one of these places that you could transact it for clothes or other older things. So on that front, right, there's this old uh, concept in economics called Say's law, which basically says that if product for product, in the sense that if there's a supply deficit of one product, there will be a increase in demand of another product, and that's how the entire economy sort of adjusts itself. Currencies were sort of the older currencies that we've had sort of had this thing in them, in the sense that, hey, we know that supply will never be in excess and things will sort of adjust by themselves. But one of the things that I think companies, even if they, I think the companies essentially have this mindset that, look, the reason we want to give a part of the salaries in crypto or any other asset for that matter is so primarily because employees can probably get better bang for the buck at the end of it. I think that's the operating philosophy that was initially started off with it, at least, right? So how do you think that crypto will stand in terms of its own volatility, and in terms of its the changing times and everything else? I mean, imagine, I mean, will a company actually have to change its the cryptocurrency that it sort of disperses its salaries in every 5 years, every 10 years, or could it or will we actually reach a point where we might have something that's super stable and super efficient, all of these things, and could we just use that for the rest of our work things? Is that a fair thing to ask?
That's an excellent question. So the way I look at things going, let's say there's a company which let's take an example of the Tata Group, right? So they manufacture a lot of products which their employees would also like to buy. So now suppose Tata decides that I will pay X amount of the employee's CTC in a Tata coin. And the rule is that Tata coin can only be used for buying Tata products. But when you use a Tata coin to buy the product, you get it 20% cheaper. So now what have you done? You've already given the employee more bang for the buck because he can get 20% more by way of
And the business sort of gets a circular economy going on for itself as well.
exactly. So you could do that provided you have products which can be purchased against that coin. The moment you give external cryptos, then you will not be able to do that because then you are presuming that the crypto price will go up and that's why the employee gets more bang for the buck. But that never happens. There can never be a financial market in the world or an asset in the world which is only going up. There have to be ups and downs. So it depends. Sometimes employees could end up losing on that. So I believe that it does make sense. But for companies or even other companies could tie up with Tata, for example, and say, we are going to now pay you some part in Tata coin so that you can go there and buy everything from salt to electricals to electronics. So you can do that. You can do that, but not with the current cryptos that we see because they are not directly convertible into such kind of a product. That's where problems do begin to arise. So, in fact, if you look at Sodexo, what's the advantage of giving employees Sodexo over
Tax
giving him
benefits
cash and
primarily,
allowing
right?
him to go and buy something? Right?
Tax benefits, wasn't it?
Yeah, but then that's what was there any economic benefit per se? You're only
Not
trying to
really.
reduce taxes, so obviously the
Yeah,
government is not going to like that,
right.
right? So the logic is that with Sodexo, if he's supposed to go and buy food, well, why don't you just give him cash? He will go and buy food anyway if he wants. Sodexo forces you to buy food only, but when you get cash, you buy whatever you want out of it. So I think we've got to see more of these company or ecosystem led coins coming in, like a Tata coin, for example. In fact, that would be the best use case. If someone as respected as the Tatas come out with their own crypto, which is exchangeable not for cash, but only for products on their platforms, I think it could do pretty well.
It makes a ton of sense. I mean, I love the way that you sort of draw out all the nuances around all of these aspects, because it's sort of important to understand. Because one of the reasons I think that having this conversation of this podcast is important is because these bubbles, that they're essentially really determine the way that things are going to be, the new norm that's essentially going to come ahead as well. At least it helps us capture the trends. I think that's what Seeing Beyond is, I think, also in existence for. So, yeah, I think that brings us to the close of this episode. Rohas, it was
One thing,
amazing.
sorry,
Yeah,
um,
Nisha.
I just have one other, point to bring up since we
Uh-huh.
have you here, Rohas. Countries like China want to have their own coins, right? It's an extrapolation of Tata having his own coin to some extent. But if Tata ever does that, they heard it here first, and they're anyway discussing their super apps. So maybe we're giving them some ideas. But coming to this question that China has been talking about. I mean, China generally, we know its approach. It likes to ban everything but create its own. So China has its own, or coming up with its own currency. So what do you think are the implications of that? And do you think then the Chinese could be paid in that currency if they make it, in one of those levels that you were talking about? If it is recognized, then do you think that that can become a payment or a compensation currency as well?
So what China is doing is called a central bank digital currency, right? So it's just like the Reserve Bank of India today issues notes, which can then be stored in your app as electronic money. It's virtually the same thing. Only thing is the tech platform is a little different. So it will replace their currency. That is the new currency there. But the problem in that approach, or what I'm worried about, first of all, they can control where you spend the money. Now just imagine you get your salary, but the rule is 50% has to be spent within your home city only. Secondly, they can control when you spend it. So they can say if you don't spend so much within 3 months, the money is disappearing or it has no value left. And then they can decide what you spend it on. So they can say you have to spend 20% only on this, only 5% on alcohol. Now my question is, what gives the government the right to censor what you do with your own money? As long as you're not spending your money on illegal things, how can they tell you what to spend it on, when to spend it on, and where to spend it on? And that's what happens in the CBDC approach. And that's exactly what China is doing. So while it may be okay in a non-democracy, for the rest of the world, I think it's a horrible thing to happen because it's my money. I earned it. I worked for it. Now, how can anyone tell me what to do and what not to do with it? As long as it's legal, I'm not buying drugs, right? As long as I'm buying legal things, who's anyone to tell me what to do with it? And that's the problem we are going to see with CBDC. So I hope they don't become a reality.
I think we all are hoping that after, especially listening to the last minute of this episode for sure. So Rohas, it was amazing having you on the podcast with us. Nishak, again, as usual, great hosting with you. This is the Edge podcast. And be sure to again subscribe to all of our episodes and stay up to date with all of the Seeing Beyond episodes that have been coming as well. And especially please give us feedback on how this series has been, especially for you as a viewer. And thanks again for being a part of this.